Hey, 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 I'm telling you. Oh, what's this? Maybe I should do it like this. Oh yeah. Can't really hear me then, right? Maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the whole point then. You just can't hear me then. Now, I was just on the verge of drinking another coffee, but then I said, remember those times when I used to be a coffee virgin, right? On the verge of a coffee virgin, yeah? Verge off, what does that mean? I don't know. I don't know, right? Am I supposed to know? Well, it's possible. But what I also realize is that, today I woke up, but yesterday I managed to not drink a coffee at all. And that really motivated me into also not drinking a coffee today. And that motivated me because, right, I've proven to myself now, at least on one occasion, oh wow, I cannot drink coffee. It's just one day without that stuff. And that, instead of saying, oh, well, that was terrible, I had to really work hard. I had to really work hard to feel good. You could just say, well, because if you work hard day after day, right, it's just going to get easier, isn't it? If you work hard every day for the way you want to feel, without using these things that look like they make it really easy, like drinking a coffee, or smoking a joint, or, maybe you're one of these folks that snort cocaine when they feel bad. It's like, bad choices, man. Maybe you thought this was working out for you, but if you look in the mirror now, who have you become? A real prick, a jerk, somebody who can't smile, who just pretends all the time, oh yeah, I don't care. There's people that are like this. There's people that are like this, they just say, I don't care. I don't really care. I don't really care at all anymore, no more. I never cared in the first place. I never cared about you. But the truth is, I care a lot. I actually care a lot. And, I want to see people rather with a smile than with a But the thing is, if you don't want to speak up or speak out, if you don't want to open up and say how you feel, because you try to, hold and create that image that you're a strong person, because you're afraid to show weakness, then nobody can help you with that, man. Nobody can help you with that. And I've been doing it for so long. Instead of doing it, I went to my parents and I did say I have suicidal thoughts. And their suggestion was go to a psychiatrist, and I said no, because I knew I could do it myself. I knew I was doing my own therapy, and that saying it to someone, I have suicidal thoughts, was a part of my therapy. I didn't do it because I wanted to lay in their lap and cry. I did it because I simply wanted to know what would happen if I would do it. And then another door opened up. And what was the door? The door was, okay, go to a psychiatrist. But I knew I wouldn't want that, because that person would just say, I'm crazy. And I would sit there trying to explain how I feel to a person who has no idea how I feel. So what's the point? What's the point of talking to a psychiatrist? Because that psychiatrist has no idea how I feel, because he never allowed himself to feel that. And that may not make sense to you, But it makes a whole lot of sense to me because I know how I feel. And I've tried explaining to people how I feel who don't want to feel this. And they don't want to feel it because they're afraid of feeling it. But when I see it, I see that they're the same, right? They feel the same way. They feel just as shit as I do. But they simply don't want to change that because they don't know how. Because they're afraid to even admit to themselves, oh boy, that's how I feel, right? Wow, what's this? Sometimes I just let my tea stand for so long. Then it gets to the point where you actually don't want to drink it anymore. We're talking about tea here, right? It's just tea. That's just tea. Tea that I don't want to drink anymore. And it's basically just water, isn't it? It's basically just water, mate. But yeah, you can let water stand and it will get rancy. And you've got a lot of water in your system. You've got a lot of water in your system, and if you don't work out and sweat it out of you, then how are you going to get out the water in your system that's charged with all that negativity that you've been carrying around for all your life? You don't have to talk anything out of you, but just express it then in another way. If you don't want to talk it out of you, then walk it out of you. If you don't want to talk it out of you, then dance it out of you. If you don't want to talk it out of you, then do something else. I don't know. There's people that do anything. Some people try to jerk it out of them by jerking off all the time, or by being jerks. So using words to express how you feel is one way of expressing how you feel. But already, right, a lot of people, they go around and they talk to people like, that stupid chit chat, small talk, where you just talk about soccer and the color of your shoes or the new car you just bought. Do you know what that is? I think I made an image and I called it Yapping People Are Afraid. So if you're constantly yapping about stuff that makes no sense, right? If you're constantly talking about your neighbors or I don't know who else you're talking about, oh, there was this bird I saw the other day. Who cares? Nobody wants to hear this. Only people that are afraid listen to people who are afraid. And that's just the point, right? And people who want to have courage, they listen to people who seem to have the courage. Because, what's the point of me going out on the streets and talking with all kinds of people that just talk to make chit-chat? That only talk to make chit-chat. Why would I talk to them? Because I don't make chit-chat. I talk about things that I have found meaning in. And so, instead of doing this kind of, look how I stand here, it's like, instead of doing this kind of, man, pick yourself up, man. Pick yourself up, like, show some dignity as a human, but don't load it onto people. But this is how I walk, not because I walk like this, but simply because everybody walks like this. And if I see them, I want to be like them. Because if I walk like this, and I have like a really strong posture and I stand there like this and I say, yo, this is Christopher, man. Can you deal with him? Can you deal with him? Then people are like, oh my God, you're a little overwhelming now. You're a little bit overwhelming now. And that's the people we're dealing with. So you just have to learn to deal with yourself. man, this is how I am. I have a lot of power. I'm like, bam, anyway, talk it out of you. I first thought about doing some kind of freestyle thing, but most of the stuff I do in a way is freestyle. If I sit down and I write, then I don't think, things come up. And because they come up, I want to channel them into something. I want to channel them into my art. I want to channel them into an image. And I want to channel them into music. I just want to express myself. So talking is a form of expression. And if you have an interest in how it started with me, because why did all of this start, right? How did it start? This whole thing that I'm doing. Well, it started because I somehow, through life, I was opened, and I opened up to certain things. The way it happened was really weird. It was at the end of my studies somehow, and then I met a whole bunch of people that just showed me that there was a different way of life. But the strange thing was that a lot of these people, although they were talking about this different way of life, something was missing. Like, they weren't really living it. They said they were living it, but they did not. They said, they talked about living it, but they didn't live it. And that's a very, very strange thing. Wow. I'm so desperate for a lot of things. Sometimes I just see one thing and I think, whoa, I want that. I want that. This is how the mind works. You want something, you can't have it right now, and then you see it in somebody else and you're trying to get them, right? Okay, I'm gonna get you now. And I'm gonna really give it to you. And that's the kind of people I met on my spiritual journey. I met people that liked what I had and that wanted to make use of that. And for a while I fell for that because, I was gullible, I was vulnerable, I felt lonely, and therefore they could use me. So I met people that gave me psychedelics, and then they were keeping me kind of on a leash, right? So they would give me psychedelics. Holy shit, that was how I was. I was like a little whore or something. It sounds worse than it was. It wasn't as bad. But later on, I would see it as, the principle is pretty much the same. You give people psychedelics and then they'll keep coming back to you because you're the one who has the connections, right? These people, they would never give up their connections because that's what makes them feel special. Oh, I can supply you with that, but you have to come to me for this. Yeah, you have to come to me for this. And that's people that say they're spiritual. That's people that say, I believe in God and I walk around and I pray and stuff, right? And I do my prayers. These kind of people. You meet Christians that are like this. You meet Muslims that are like this. You meet spiritual people that are like this. You meet all kinds of people that are like this. And it makes you kind of angry. And so, what do I do with all of that anger? Of all these phony people? There's a series on my podcast which I call Phony Holy. And I made that after I had an experience in a mosque. It was a very beautiful time. I really enjoyed connecting with these people. But I also realized that wasn't my path. It wasn't my path at all. And I tried to imagine how my life would go if I would have tapped into that. I would have become a Muslim. I would have probably taken a Muslim wife. And that would have been me then. And I realized, but that's not me. That's the person who brought me there. Because he wanted me to go there and do his job. because he knows who I am and how I am. And they go into a space and I'm like, okay, I'm open, what's gonna happen? I'm like this. I see possibilities. And so he brought me there. And he was kind of my spiritual initiation guy. Yeah, so he was the one who first introduced me to kind of spiritual teachers such as Reusch, who opened me up to the idea that atheism is a form of belief. So you go around and you say, I'm an atheist, right? And the problem with atheists is that they think they know. That's like the science bubble, right? Most scientists are atheists, whether they label themselves as that or not. But they go around thinking that they know, right? They know because, I read it in a book, so I know now, yeah? I looked through a microscope, so I know now, yeah? And I couldn't find love in church, so now I have to be an atheist because I hate Christians. Hey, there's a bird building a nest. It's so beautiful. That's the kind of stuff that I'd rather talk about. Anyway, so how it started was by realizing that when I wanted to talk to people, nobody would ever listen to me. So although I thought I had a friend now, and I thought that this friend wanted me to be happy, I also realized that it didn't really seem true to me. Because when I tried to talk to him about something, he always wanted to shut me down. Because he didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want me to talk. What he wanted is me to ask questions so he could feel powerful by answering them. That was the relationship we had. He wanted to feel like the teacher, and he wanted me to be the student. He wanted to be like a guru so that he would have the feeling, I have figured it out now. I'm super smart and I can talk about all these kind of things. But the truth was that I actually had something to teach to him because I was living my life already. Right? I was going out, I was going for hikes, I was doing all these kinds of things. And for a while he was piggybacking me, but he could never admit that actually we were helping each other. He always wanted to think that it was only me that needed his help, but the truth was that actually he needed my help more than I needed his. Well, for a while, it's always, we always need each other. You can never say, I'm a healer. What does that mean? I've said that already. But there are, in that sense, no healers that heal other people. It's only healers that think they heal others, while the person who wants to be healed also heals himself. You are just the mediator between the person's wish to heal. And maybe they are at a stage in their life where they just can't do it themselves, or they simply have other responsibilities. But ultimately, I don't like it if people call themselves healers. It makes no sense. So the point I had was, the reason I started doing my podcast was that I had a lot of things to say, and they all wanted to come out, but I had nobody to listen to. And so I decided, all right, I'm just going to make a podcast. And I started my podcast pretty much how I started everything. I just started publishing stuff, I started with sometimes 3 to 4 episodes per day, and I would just chuck them out one after another, like bam, 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 and I would just chuck them out and chuck them out and chuck them out. And then I realized, as more things started to come up and talking was getting very, very exhausting for me, and suddenly I also had books that I wanted to write, images that I wanted to create, videos that I wanted to make. Suddenly I had more things, and I realized, if I'm just talking all the time, I cannot do other things, because all I want to do is talk all the time. And so I said, I think I have to change something now. And so what I realized was that I cannot maintain this, to just talk and record episodes for my podcast, because I wanted to grow as a person, as an individual. I also wanted to have time to do other things. So I thought, why do I always have to make these episodes and simply release them? There's also something else I could do, which is I could record an episode and then schedule it. And then I thought about, how many episodes would that be? 5. Every day one is a little bit much, because that would make 367 episodes per year, and I would have to record them. And what I realized was that I like episodes that are roughly 1 hour long. It also shows itself in these videos I do. I simply stand here and I talk, and in the end I have 360, I have like 100, 1 hour, 1 hour, roughly, this is the length, how long I feel good talking. And then I need a break, and and then I could talk again, or I simply do something else. And in the beginning, I didn't really have a lot to go with. What I had was the experiences I had made thus far, but also what I realized, as soon as I started talking, things suddenly would add up. And now, as I'm standing here talking, because I don't have that much stuff to say anymore, because I have so many ways to express what I feel, and so many methods in which that show me what I feel and how to deal with it, that they help me to stop clinging. Talking is one way, but as I'm standing here, right, I just sometimes have a little bit of a problem emotionally. It's not a problem, but it's just something that I'm used to, right? It's like clinging to people. And just as I was standing here, because I'm always clinging, and I don't really know what it means to let go, right? If I let go of a person, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm never going to meet them again? Right? If I let go of a person, also emotionally, and I just say, I'm just going to let you be, I'm not going to be jealous, I'm not going to feel hurt if I don't know what you're doing, I'm just going to continue with my life. And that's something that I find very hard to do. To simply continue with my life, because I don't know what the person is doing that maybe I want to love me, right? Maybe there's somebody and I want to spend time with her, and I don't see her at all, ever. I don't contact her, and I cannot contact her, and she doesn't contact me. So every day I wake up with that feeling. So to me, the only way to deal with that is actually to say, I have to just let that go. And then I saw a man walking his dog, and the dog was sniffing vigorously. And because the dog was on a leash, the guy couldn't continue walking, so he had to stop all the time and wait. He had to stop all the time and wait for his dog to stop sniffing, or he had to pull the dog. But that means his focus would always be on the pace of the dog. And the funny thing was that a day before, I saw the same guy with the same dog, and this time the dog was in front and he was pulling really fast, and the guy was on the leash with a grin on his face, like walking after the dog. But now that the dog needed time, he was like, I want to continue, come on. So either this guy is being pulled by others, or this guy stands around waiting for others. But he has problems pulling his own weight. That's basically what it shows. Because as long as the dog isn't pulling him, he's standing around waiting for it. And that describes a lot of my relationships. You know, as long as somebody else wasn't taking me along, and then I could do the pulling, because in a way I enjoyed that. Now I was just standing around waiting, because I could do the pulling. But I also realized if I'm constantly pulling people along with me, that's gonna make me really, really heavy. Because then I always have to pull them. And if you have to pull somebody, that usually means that person is really miserable. And that means they're gonna use you to work out their shit. Right? Because if you spend time with people that feel miserable and that want you to be around to pull them along, then they will direct all their hatred at you. And that means that, you know, I'm working here on a daily basis and I'm showing myself on the internet. And now I've had a person who I would consider an old friend, and he contacted me, you know, that guy who wanted to be the teacher. And he just writes me emails these days. And I can feel from the way he writes to me that there's a lot of anger in that. So all I can do is I can see that and then I delete it. Because I don't want to respond to it. I don't want to watch the videos he sends me, because these videos are very terrible. And I don't want to watch that. So I simply, you know, okay, you can write me emails and I'm just going to delete them. You know, that's the favor I can do to you. But, you know, I don't run away from my email account because of that. And that's some people that I meet, because I was doing that with someone. You know, I just kept sending her, you know, all my anger and all my fear, and I just put it into a letter because somehow I thought, you know, I have to stay in contact with her. You know, I thought I had to keep her close. So I was just channeling all these emotions that I had into emails that I was sending her. And after a while, she just never responded anymore. And then after a while, her email account rejected my emails because it was full. So I realized, damn it, now I can't do that anymore. And I also realized, damn it, you know, I knew why I was doing that. I actually wanted to keep her away from me. So the reason I was sending her these emails was to show her, listen, this is what we are feeling. So you either deal with it or you run to somebody else. And I cannot control you, right? If you run to somebody else, this is over, right? You will sever the bond that we have because you think it's too much for us. That's what you're gonna do. If you run to another person to cuddle with them, to sleep with them, to kiss them, or to spend time with them as you would like to spend time with me, then you sever the bond that we are having. And when you do that, then to me, this is over. I'm not going to stitch that up anymore. Because everybody's responsible for themselves. And if somebody likes you, but they don't live it, well then they don't really like you. Or they didn't have the courage. And I want people that walk this path with me to have courage. So if I can't trust you because you're a coward, you know, because you run away from love and you run away from me, and I can't help that because I'm an intense kind of character. And if you can't deal with me, but you want to be my wife, well then what am I supposed to do with that, right? If you can't deal with yourself and you cannot face me, then to me you're a coward and you're just running away. Okay, playtime's over. You know, I don't have time to play with you. You know, I don't have time to just screw around and have a good time having sex. Because to me by now, sexuality is something important. You know, it's something to build a family from. I don't just have time to screw around if that's what you're after, no, I'll rather keep walking and see if somebody else is around the corner. Because I don't know where I'm at, right? I sometimes think, I thought this guy, when he gave me these substances and he told me about Rupert Sheldrake and he sometimes went hiking with me, I thought he was a really good friend, right? That's what I wanted him to be, because I thought I was in need of a friend. And it turned out he was, as nice as he was a complete asshole. It came to the point where he didn't even invite me into his home anymore because his wife took a liking to me. Not like in the way that you think, but she just liked having me around when I didn't come anymore. She asked him, oh, why doesn't he come anymore? Well, I didn't come anymore because that guy was a complete jerk. And he didn't want to work with me. I offered it to him many times. Many times I offered him to do something together, to work out together. I offered him, right, to do ceremonies and sessions together, but he had no interest. He was just like, yeah. But he didn't want to take this serious. And so at one point I simply started to sever myself from this and to say, this is over now. And so instead of trying to explain that to him, because people who are clinging to you, they can't let go because they want you for security. So if I come to you and I try to explain to you why I don't want to spend time with you anymore, that person's just going to say, yeah, and they're going to try to talk you out of it. Because as long as you stick around explaining to them why you don't want to spend time with them anymore, you're still spending time with them. So they're getting what you want and you're giving it to them, which is stupid because I didn't want to do that anymore. And then I realized, I'm basically just doing now what other people started doing to me. They simply started to stop talking to me. And they just started to ignore me completely. They just started to give me nothing at all anymore. But the problem for me then was, I don't know what that means. What does that mean now? I fell in love with a woman. And now she won't talk to me anymore. She couldn't even say anything to me. She couldn't even say to me, just keep going, we'll meet along the way. Because maybe she was afraid or whatever, I don't know that. I don't know really what other people feel. Well, I can, but if I connect to someone on an emotional level, without words, even from a distance, I can actually feel what other people are feeling. Only it's a double-edged sword, because if I do that, and I feel how afraid another person is, I might start getting really angry at that person because that's how I channel their fear. And then rather than channeling it into more anger by attacking them, I could just channel it into art. I could just sit down and start recording myself and just say all the things that I want other people to hear. Only instead of saying it to the people that I live with, I just say it to anybody who decides to hear it. And that was why my podcast was the absolute therapy session, because I could sit down and I could say all the things that I wanted to say. Well, and to me it was about putting it out there because that's the kind of job that I wanted, right? I wanted to earn money with this in the long run. And so I simply said all the things that came to my mind, and I realized that it helped me because there was nobody sitting there that also wanted to talk, and there was nobody sitting there that would judge what I said. So all I could do was I could simply say everything that I wanted to say and speak about the things that I wanted to explain. Sometimes I wanted people to explain something to me. But the point is I could just explain these things to myself. So the first session that I did was about perspective, I think. And perspective is one of the cornerstones of everything that I do, because if you put things into perspective, suddenly they look a bit different. If you can put the perspective of another person, of another person's silence, into another perspective, right? If you can shift that, if somebody stops talking to you and you think that's a bad thing and you get angry at that and you think now that person hates me, and you can shift the perspective and see it from the perspective of the person, that's giving you the silent treatment, you can actually realize maybe I've been using that person to get rid of my anger, and maybe that's why the person stopped talking, and maybe the reason the person stopped talking to me is because what they actually wanted was a loving and caring relationship with me, but since I couldn't give them that, they just started retreating. And now, okay, now I have to live with my shame of having done that. That's a tough one. Now, that's something you have to deal with. But what you certainly cannot do is force other people to want to be with you, because I don't know, right? I don't know what the other person does now. Maybe she's just every day waking up and misses me a lot. I don't know that. Sometimes it feels like this, but I don't know that. But certainly it's giving me a hard time because I also know how I contributed to this thing that is happening. And so this is the feeling I woke up today with, right? This is the feeling I woke up today with. And that's also partly, why I was talking about this guy now also was because I had a dream about him. And I pay attention to what I dream. But the funny thing is, sometimes, I dream about someone and I say something to them in my dream. And I realize while I'm saying it to them, I'm also actually saying it to myself, because, everybody I meet also represents me. So if I'm saying to someone, you need to open up more, then I'm saying it to myself. Because if I could open up, I could open up to you being silent and just start seeing you for who you are, without wanting you to say something to me. Yeah, that came out really quickly. I really decided that at the moment I didn't want to drink a coffee, but coffee is still an option, I get that. But the problem is, coffee, what I realize now, in a way it's like an expression of fear. Right? You're trying to run away from these things that you feel. You don't want to deal with them. But eventually, you'll either have to or you're gonna crash. Wow. Squatting is literally the best exercise. Wow. Wow. Oh, and standing also. But, I do this hip movement back and forth. It's a bit like twerking. Because this is the hard part about emotions and about getting them out. That once you start, more and more is going to come. And some days, you feel like, oh wow, today I feel really good. And you feel like, maybe you just talk to somebody, and you could get rid of all your bullshit. And then you go home and you feel really good. But do you know how the other person feels? Used. Because you didn't care how they felt. And that's what I also see in a lot of people. They come to you and they talk to you, and then they can get rid of all their heaviness, and then they go away and say, oh yeah, I actually feel pretty good now. Yeah, and then they walk away and you stand there and think, and me? What about me now? And that's why I stopped talking to people so much, because that's exactly the problem I had. Now, I was talking to people because I felt heavy, and I wanted to get my heaviness out of me, but then I also had to deal with their heaviness. So what started as, I talk to people because I want to feel better, ended as, now I actually feel worse than before. Because now I also had to deal with their heaviness. And the same thing, now I just do it. People come to me if they want to talk, I'll let them talk. And I try to actually say nothing to that. And if they don't like that because they're insecure, well, I can't help that. But the reason why I moved so quickly through my trauma and through all these emotions was because I simply explained them to myself, right? I stand here today, I wake up, I'm heavy. I don't go to people and ask them why I'm heavy. I don't go to a psychiatrist and ask him to explain to me why I feel the way I feel, because he won't know it, because he doesn't feel it. And so I stand here and I feel a certain way, and while I'm talking, I see this dog. I'm just gonna say that, I see on the opposite side of the street, there's apparently a girl moved in, or a young woman, and I have never seen her, and her window is open, and I can see her standing there. And do you know what my mind starts to do, and what my energy wants to do? It wants to get rid of it. Suddenly it wants to go over there and ring the door and say, "Hey, how are you doing? I saw you just moved in." Yeah, but what I really want is to just get rid of my frustration. Because what's keeping me frustrated is that I'm in love with a woman and I have no idea what she's doing or how she's feeling about me. And that makes me frustrated. And on some days I feel how she feels about me, and then I feel this incredible love. And then I think it's impossible that somebody feels this about me. Nobody can have so much love for me. I'm sure she's somewhere doing something with someone, and all that kind of stuff. And then I stand here and I start to get really afraid. And start, I'm sick of pulling my own weight. I want someone to pull me up the hill now. And then what do? I think about, oh wow, I could just go over there and introduce myself. But what I really want is to just run away from the woman that I'm in love with. Because I'm afraid that she hates me. And I'm afraid that, she doesn't sit around wondering when we're going to see each other. I'm afraid that she actually says fuck that guy, I hate him. I never want to see him again. I'm just going to spend time with other guys now. That's my fear. That's my fear. Look at those eyes, those eye rings. I'm like, I'm so terrible, It's all that darkness, I feel so miserable. People don't love me. I'm just gonna drink another coffee. And it's like weak ass. It's like weak ass mentality. Yeah. So I don't really understand sometimes. Am I really gonna stand here and keep doing this? But the thing I've realized is if I don't drink coffee, I have so much more energy. I'm supercharged. I'm like, bam! Like this morning, yesterday I didn't drink coffee, and this morning I was supercharged. I was playing with the dog a bit, and wow, and I realized, man, there's so much movement. It's like, it doesn't matter if it looks good. I can at least try to get that out. And when I watched the video I made for the song I Claim You, I was dancing like this. And then I kept drinking coffee day in and day out, and only after a couple of days of drinking coffee, I simply felt really weak. I felt so weak, I didn't want to move anymore, and that's what I see in everybody. Because imagine it, why do we drink coffee? We drink coffee because we're frustrated. You are frustrated because your energy is blocked, right? And when you feel that your energy is blocked is when pressure is building up down here. There's pressure building. Pressure. Men say, oh, I have so much pressure, I have to do something. So they either get themselves a woman that they can have sex with, or they masturbate. You know, although some people go boxing, but that's already, you could say, a bit better. You know, when you don't know what to do with your stuff, you either have sex with people, or you watch porn, or you masturbate. You know, some people eat a lot because then they're busy digesting and stuff. And what do other people do? Yeah, exactly. You know, other people talk a lot. They just talk about nonsense. But when you're talking, you're not going to move a lot, right? So talking is very exhausting, which is why I maintain silence now throughout the day. And when I'm silent, so much stuff comes up. So much stuff. You know, I can stand here and talk about this. I could even write a poem about it. But these are all things that I have to learn. I have to learn how to express myself in different ways. And whether I do this by talking to myself, right? That's the important part. Talking to yourself. You know, sometimes I went for hikes or walks, and all the time I was hiking or walking, I was just having a conversation with myself aloud. And when I got angry, I would just have an angry conversation with myself and say, I hate this shit, you know, what is this? And I would do this on my own. And I also, okay, sure, you know, I went to places where people couldn't really hear me, because it's really annoying when people get afraid because you're having a conversation with yourself. And then that's the thing, if you start doing this while other people are around, you'll probably start directing your anger at them. They say, what are you looking at? Yeah? Because now you're riding a horse, and that horse is anger. And when you're with other people, then you'll have to deal with their fear. And when you're just riding a horse that is angry, you know, it's very hard to deal with other people's horses that are afraid. Because these people might actually call the police when you're doing this. They might actually call the police. Because, right, so you can't just do this everywhere. You know, go somewhere where it's a little bit quiet, go to a forest, you know, where you don't have to worry about. So, you know, it's not really when you're standing in the corner of some kind of, I don't know what. You know, you don't know who's going to come around, but if you're in a forest, you know, it's perfectly fine. And maybe in a park at night, it's also okay, but yeah, you don't know who's going to be in that park, and you don't know who you're going to attract. Because they might think, oh, that person is a lunatic or a victim, or, you know, I'm just going to let my anger out on them because I can say, you're a pathetic piece of shit, right? You know, that's how some people are. They just use others to make themselves feel better. And that's why I don't like boxing and all that kind of stuff, because it's using others to make yourself feel powerful and like you can win over others. And I just didn't want to do that anymore, because I know I can. But what does that do to me, right? What does that do with me? Wow. Like these postmen, their job is so hard. Their job is so hard. And now they're actually talking about delivering packages with drones. I mean, are you kidding me? They say that's the new solution now. Yeah, to make money for the people that make drones and for the battery developers. Yeah, and people who exploit nature to create drones. Do you have any idea what that's gonna do to the planet? These things are going to malfunction, they're going to drop onto people at times, you know, they're going to crash into cars, they're going to drop into the ocean, into rivers, into forests. That's what's gonna happen. I mean, you've seen it with these, maybe that's for another, but that's also something, right? I have to speak about these things. have to speak about these things because it's so stupid. I mean, nobody sees that. Nobody sees how stupid it is. Nobody sees how stupid it is. It's so incredibly stupid. All these things that we do because we think that's gonna make life easier. You know what would make life easier? If we would stop producing so much stuff. Because how life was really easy was when I would wake up and I would just be in nature, and then I knew exactly what to do, which is look after the fire, I don't know, help people build stuff, work together in a community. That sounds really easy to me. Now if I leave the house, I have no idea what kind of angry jerk I meet. I don't know if a car will just lose control or the person driving the car loses control and just drives into me. Right? I don't know if there's some kind of amok run. So we say we improved life, we just made it more complicated. The only reason I have to talk so much is because there's so much anger around. I mean, there's so much anger in the world, and I see that, how we express that anger by exploiting Earth. It's like the slaves working in the mines. They're angry because they're being suppressed by people who are angry and who want to suppress people. Yeah? So we all let it out on Mother Nature. Yeah, sure, she can take a lot. Mothers can take a lot of shit from you. Mothers can take a lot of shit from you because they have a loving nature. But we're talking about, nature, right? It's all connected. How some people treat their mothers, the mother comes and wants to take care of you and you're 45 and you're like, leave me alone. Why do you even have to say that? You can just see that she's trying to take care of you because she has problems taking care of herself. So you could just see that and say, nothing. And just work out your anger, right? Because the reason you get angry at your mother, because she's trying to take care of you, is because you actually want that. And that makes you angry. But you're not a little child anymore, Oh, cradle me, mother. Yum, yum. Yeah, you can get that. Go to the forest, find a really big tree, and lay down at its roots, and then feel the majestic power of nature. Yeah? That no human can ever create, no matter how much he tries. Because it doesn't matter how many, nuclear bombs you would throw on the earth, life would still continue. Because that's how powerful life is. And I keep hearing that people think, that it's life and death. It's not life and death. It's birth and death. And in between birth and death, there is life. It's just something you have to get into your head. So you're gonna be born and you're gonna die. These are opposites. And in between you fill it with life. Birth and death are actually not opposites. They're the same thing. So you can say birth and death are life. Because that's the part of it, right? Now it depends on how you fill the time of your life. And if you want to stand around and gossip about other people, because that was what the dream was telling me, stop talking about other people. I still talk about other people sometimes. I bring them up as examples. Should I not do that? That's a tough one. Because if I would stand here and only talk about myself, it feels a bit complicated. It feels a little bit complicated. But I think you just have to figure it out, man.